Hello Hoop Monitor users. In this support video we're going to go over custom feed subscriptions, and these are used to create different types of feeds, filtered feeds for your dynamic display campaigns, and they are primarily used to serve these four purposes. I'll go through each one of these. First of all, feed filters. Oftentimes you don't want to be using your entire inventory feed for a dealer in your campaigns. If you're doing dynamic remarketing, you probably would, but in other situations, such as going maybe to in-market audiences, you might want to create filtered feeds. So custom feeds will allow you to do that. You can create filtered feeds for things like only new vehicles. If you're maybe going to go to a in-market new vehicle shopper audience, used vehicles under 10,000, or very importantly, being able to filter based on the type of image that's shown with the vehicle. Certainly, if a vehicle has a placeholder image coming soon, you most likely don't want to show that in an ad, not a very good ad experience. So feed filters is going to allow you to do things like this. It's also going to allow you to create feeds in different formats. We often get a support request asking, oh, how much additional is it going to cost to run our dynamic display also maybe on the Google Display Network? And there's no additional cost. It's built in with the custom feeds. If you would like to get a feed in a different format, you can go create those feeds in different formats with the custom feed subscriptions and get them in formats such as for AdWords to advertise on Google Display Network, Facebook ads, Facebook Marketplace, and some third-party networks like the Jumpstart Network. We can also create feeds using inventory history, which is a very attractive thing to do for ads to make them more appealing. We can do things like base them on the age of the inventory. Oftentimes, dealerships will want to pay special attention to trying to move their vehicles that have been in stock for a longer period of time. So we could make filters to also say we only want to be including in these ads vehicles that are over 30 days old or have been on the lot for over 30 days. And then also price drops, which can create really compelling ads where you can look for over a certain date range or a certain number of days into the past what vehicles have had a price drop of over a certain amount, like $500. And then we also offer sold vehicle reports. These, of course, wouldn't be feeds that you'd want to use to advertise because they've already sold them, but very good to kind of compare and associate with the traffic reports that you might be getting from, say, Facebook for your display ads, and kind of show that we've driven traffic to these particular vehicles with these VINs, and we can see that on this date afterwards they sold. Therefore, the advertising that drove traffic to those pages likely contributed to that sale. So these are the primary purposes. Let's get into the interface and take a look at how we create these. I'm in my dealer dashboard for the Auto Agency demo account, and for this I'm going to be using Texas Toyota Grapevine. So let's go ahead and take a look at just their feed as a whole first. Now, you should know that when you request dynamic display feeds, you automatically get two default feeds that we stick in here for you, the Facebook default feed and the AdWords default feed. But of course, we can create many more feeds to go along with this, but let's take a look at the Facebook default feed. I intentionally picked one with a large number of vehicles. I think this dealership has over 1,000 vehicles in inventory, so we could have a lot to filter by. But here's our feed data, and let me just scroll down to the bottom real quick. So yeah, we can see it's got about 1,500 vehicles in here. And I'm going to scroll over to the right because the thing I want to start talking about is the image classification before we start using filters to filter certain image types out. So when we're looking at these images, you can see that we've got both the image and a classification over here to the right with a drop down that will allow you to change the classification. And the reason we have this is because we're using a method called machine learning. It's a type of artificial intelligence that allows us to, instead of having to logically go look at something like an image URL, this thing down here, and look for something in there that would identify that image as a placeholder image, stock image, or a dealer image, we're actually using some technology that we have trained the system by processing through hundreds of thousands, possibly millions at this point, of pre-categorized images, and the system over time has learned to actually look at the image itself and say, this looks like a placeholder image with no regard whatsoever to the image URL. And the reason we've done this is because with many CMS platforms out there and many inventory management systems, you can't tell by looking at the URL. And oftentimes you'll see, scroll down here, where two placeholder images that are the exact same images will actually have different image URLs, and they will be the same image URLs that will be used when they finally get the real image in place. And so again, there's no way to kind of programmatically look at this and logically tell that this is a dealer photo, this is a placeholder photo, but now with our machine learning tool, we can do that. Now, of course, now that it is making these classifications as a human would, it's prone to errors like humans are, so that's why we've allowed the drop down with the ability to reclassify the image. So if the system has incorrectly determined, oh, that actually, I know it looks a lot like a dealer photo, but that's actually a stock photo, you can change it in the system and then kind of show it with example with some stocks. So here's some stocks on the next page. And if we go in and we change this one to say this was a placeholder or a dealer, it would not only know that that image was changed to, say, a placeholder image, but these other two as well, because they look just like it. And that would happen on the next time the system updated the feed. Okay, so now that you understand the image classification, let's go take a look at some examples of filtering by image classification. So I'm going to go down to the custom feed section, and I'm going to create a new add feed subscription, and I'm going to call this dealer images only. Select the advertiser I want to create the feed for. You can select multiple at the same time if you'd like. This one's going to be for Texas Toyota Grapevine. Feed type. This will be the default feed type. I'm going to go through each one of those types during the support video. Click Next. And now we need to select the feed format. So lots of format options here. I'm going to stick with the Facebook Automotive. I like using that because it's got the most vehicle-specific fields in it. And now we get some filter options. What I want to focus on now is just the image filtering. So right now we've already unchecked placeholder for you, assuming that you probably don't want those in your ads, but of course you can get them back in if you'd like. But we want to actually take those out and take the stock images out as well. So we're left only with dealer photos that are going to show up in the feed that's going to be driving our ads. Let me click Submit for that. And now we can look down within Texas Toyota Grapevine, and not only the default feeds, we now have this new dealer images only feed. Take a look at that. And let's first go down to the bottom. Okay, so we can see they filtered that down from about 1,500 vehicle records to just under 500 vehicle records. And if we look over here at the images, all those placeholders are gone, and the stock images are also gone. I'll flip over to page 2 and 3, etc. Okay. So very important feature to take advantage of, because certainly it is not a good ad experience to be showing placeholder images in ads. And oftentimes if a vehicle or 3 or 4 vehicles show up using the same stock image, that doesn't really create a good experience either. I would like to point out that while I access that feed from the custom feeds section, also within dealer dashboard, when you go into the dealer details in the inventory feeds tab, you also will see all the custom feeds there that you've created for that dealership. So let's head back to the custom feeds. We've created a filtered feed based on image classification, but let's create a filtered feed for another purpose. Let's say we want to create a specific feed that we're going to use to target to in-market used vehicle shoppers. We'll call this feed our used specials feed. Again, I'm going to do it for Texas Toyota Grapevine. I'm going to use the default feed type. Still use the automotive, Facebook Automotive format, but now I'm going to do some more things. Now, we don't want to have new vehicles because this is a used specials feed. So I'll uncheck that. And then I'm going to add additionally a filter to say, well, I only want to include the used vehicles with prices under $10,000. So I've got price 0 to 10,000, add filter. Now, of course, you could add as many criteria to this as you'd like. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it with just the stock and dealer photos here. Hit submit. And now we've got our use specials feed. Let's take a look at that. Go over to where there it is, the price column. And if we scroll down, we can see that yes, every single one is under $10,000 and they're all used vehicles. So now we've got a feed that's ready to use for that. And of course, to set these up and say do Facebook catalog, you would just now copy the feed link specially for the used vehicles and paste it into the data sources. Okay, so let's head down. Let's look at some of our other feed types. So for this one, I'm going to create what I'm going to call a new model lineup feed. And use our Texas Toyota Grapevine. Feed type, I'm going to use our lowest prices. Now this is a special type of feed that behaves very differently than the others, and it's easiest just to show you, so stick with the Facebook Automotive format. Excuse me. Now we're calling this a new model lineup, so certainly I don't want our used and certified vehicles, and I'm going to add 3 filters to this. I'm going to select 3 models that are new Toyotas. So I'm going to select a RAV4. Do keep in mind this is case sensitive, so with lowercase AV that might not work if it's not like that in the original feed. I'm also going to do one for the Tacoma, and I'm also going to do one for the Camry. Okay, so we've got 3 filter criteria set up for this feed, and when I submit, that's going to result in 3 records in the feed. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so we had set this up with 1 filter for a Camry, 1 for a Toyota, 1 for a RAV4, so we have 3 records of the feed, 1 for each of those models, and it is then the lowest price, there's a price field, lowest price of each of those models. So in this situation, probably should have filtered out the stocks. They all came back stock. This would be a feed that you want to use to do something like a new model lineup ad, where then you could say, check out the new models we've got here at Texas Toyota Grapevine. We have Camrys starting at $23,791. Tacomas starting at $25,279. You get the idea. Okay, so that is a lowest price field. Let's move on to one of our historical data fields. So I'm going to create, well, it's right in there now, price drop feed for Texas Toyota Grapevine. And I really like these price drop feeds because I think they create really compelling ads. Because we can go in here and say, we don't want all the vehicles. I only want to show vehicles that have had a big price drop recently, because that would be a good way to promote vehicles that the dealer is also likely trying to move. So I'm going to say I only want to include vehicles that have had a price drop of over, I'm going to put in $500 over the last 7 days. I need to use my Facebook Automotive format, submit, and now we can see the price drop feed is in there. And if we take a look at that, it's actually changed some formatting in the feed. You can see now that we've got 2 price values. We've got a price and a sale price. So both of these will be available, and this is a Facebook feed, so if you're in Facebook creating your dynamic carousel ad, it will allow you to insert and merge in both of these fields. So you can say, check out these vehicles. Prices just reduced was $27,921, now only $26,776. So again, I think these create really compelling ads that are probably more likely to get clicks that the dealer wants. So let's head back. We'll take a quick look at the other historical feed we have. However, I'm not actually going to create one because I think it's going to be very obvious how it works and what it'll look like when it's done. So we've got our aging inventory feed. So this is where if you want to base record selection on the time that the vehicle's been on the lot. So we only want to include vehicles that have been on the lot, say, over 45 days. Then again, select the feed format, and this might be a good one to also maybe filter down to just used. So any used inventory that's been on the lot for over 45 days, well, that's distressed inventory. Let's promote it extra heavy and try to move it. Okay, so let me cancel out of that, and I will show you our last feed type, and that would be a sold vehicle report. There's sold. Click next, and again, this wouldn't be for advertising, but it's a very good report to have to compare to your performance data. So we've got a date range. So sold when, not from the beginning of time or from the beginning of when we ever set the feeds up, but maybe only in the last 7 days what vehicles have been sold. And what we consider sold, if it was in the feed yesterday and is not in the feed today, we consider that a sold vehicle. I'll hit submit. Sold vehicle report. We'll take a look. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to get over here. VIN's the important field here because how these are typically used is to, again, compare against your inventory, or I'm sorry, your performance data coming from, say, Facebook dynamic display campaigns. You might say, you know, we ran 27 clicks over the last 30 days to this particular vehicle with this VIN, and we see in this sold vehicle report that it sold on this date. Therefore, you could imply that the advertising that drove traffic to that page also contributed to the sale for that vehicle. So very nice to use for that. And this is where I'd like to show kind of one example of a way the feed links can be used outside of our system and AdWords and Facebook. So I'm going to take that sold vehicle report link and I'm going to copy the feed link. I'm going to come over to Google Sheet, and this is a good way to get that connection for reporting with your performance data if you can also get your performance reports into a Google Sheet. So you can use the import data function, equals here, import data, and quote there, the feed link that I copied, and enter. And that's pretty much it. So what this function is going to do, it will automatically be going to that feed link. And I'm not sure if Sheets updates this on a routine basis every X hours or if it's every time that you actually open up the sheet itself. But certainly when you go back to this tomorrow, it's going to look different. And you can see that it actually just imported the data from the feed into a sheet. So you're always going to have the most updated data here. So if you can also then get your performance data into another worksheet here, you can start building out reports to take advantage of both of those data sets. Okay. One last thing to take a look at before we close out this video. Back to custom feeds here. Is the formats. So again, let me just go through the process one more time. And I'll just do this with the default feed. And just go through the format options we have here. So certainly AdWords. So if you're going to run a Google Display Network dynamic display campaign, dynamic remarketing, you'll want to use the AdWords feed. Facebook Automotive, obviously for Facebook, but we still have the Facebook Retail in here. If you have any RV dealerships, boats, ATVs, essentially anything that would not be a typical consumer vehicle for getting around, you'll likely want to use the Facebook Retail feed because RVs, for example, a travel trailer doesn't have a fuel type. It doesn't have many of the data elements that are required fields for the automotive feed. So in those situations, you want to switch over and create a custom feed in the Facebook Retail format. We also have some marketplace feeds here if you're using one of these other vendors for marketplace, but of course you can request Facebook Marketplace direct integration from the Hoop Monitor system if you want to avoid working with a second vendor. And then we also have some of the third-party networks here like AutoWeb and Jumpstart. You can use these feeds for your dynamic video ads as well, and then just create a standard old Facebook Marketplace feed if your company might have direct access to the marketplace itself. Okay, and so that covers feed types, and that pretty much concludes all of the different capabilities that you have to create your custom feeds, filtered feeds from within the custom feeds interface. And let me just go back to Texas Toyota Grapevine of one last time so we can see that these are all available. And don't forget, you can come in here and expand out each one of these to remind yourself, oh, what filters did I set up within there? And then also, if you want to just click on the feed link to download the data into Excel, like I often like to do. Okay, best of luck. Always reach out to support. Support email address is right up here in the upper right-hand corner of the interface if you need any assistance or have any issues with the custom feed tool. Thank you very much.